Right, I'm just going to be real with you all off the back. The Abyssal Serpent, the Formless Mother and the Bloodstar have been more on my mind over the last year than the clusterfuck which is my existential crisis. I believe there is a connection between these three very interesting characters. And before you think about it, no, it does not have anything to do with very questionable fan art.
I got a plan, John.
You always got a plan, Dutch.
This is a good one.
Instead, it's actually to do with a secret that is in the base game of Elden Ring. It has been talked about before, but I think given the context of today's video, it makes a lot more sense. Before we go any further, I just wanted to say, a small percentage of the people that watch these videos are actually subscribed. I am by no means asking you to subscribe right now, as to be honest, I think that's a bit stupid. But if at the end of the video you have enjoyed, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Without any further ado, please sit back, relax, grab some succulent, juicy, tender and sensational prawns if you want, and enjoy as we delve into these three very enigmatic figures. The best way in any form of media, hell, in real life, to come to a conclusion whether two groups of people are connected is talking about their similarities. In this case, it's three groups: the Formless Mother, the Abyssal Serpent and the Bloodstar, but that really doesn't matter, it's the same sort of idea. First, I want to talk about the connections between the Formless Mother and the Bloodstar. Now, this has been a big theory since basically Elden Ring releasing, but the Bloodstar and the Formless Mother are most likely the same thing. To be honest, you could go into a 20-minute essay on why the two characters are the same. To save that from happening, I'm just going to go with the cliff notes. Each faction inside of Elden Ring has their own alignments. You've got Glintstone, you've got Death, you've got Fire, and just like the other factions, both the Formless Mother and the Bloodstar have an alignment. The difference being they share the same one, that being blood. This isn't the only connection, for if we actually look about how these two beings come about, it's very similar. In the darkness below the Golden Capital, where Mohg was tortured, he found the Formless Mother. It reached out to him from the darkness. Likewise, the Briars of Sin, after being punished and the thorns were dug into their eyes, in their blindness, they found the Bloodstar in the dark. Do you see the connection? The darkness is the key, and in the darkness, finding the light. And that is what the Formless Mother and the Bloodstar share in common. Not to mention they are both very motherly figures. They look after the downtrodden, whether they're right or whether they're wrong, in a very unconditional, loving manner. I truly believe that they are the same entity. The question we're tasked with now is, what is the connection to the Abyssal Serpent and Messmer? What on earth has that got to do with any of this at all? And I think I have the answer. On the surface, you might be thinking, Gecko, what the fuck are you on about, man? The base serpent and these two entities have nothing in common. But you'd be really surprised how much they do have in common. We know that these entities, the Formless Mother and the Bloodstar, find their victims, children, inside the darkness. And likewise, Messmer is also in darkness. Messmer was cursed with the base serpent, aka the Abyssal Serpent, and so his mother placed a seal grace eye upon his only remaining eye. His other eye completely shut. This eye that had this grace seal placed upon it was then shrouded in darkness. Messmer says the Abyssal Serpent shorn of light. This could be a matter of speech, but if you actually look very closely, you'll see in Messmer's cutscene, you can see the snakes writhing in the actual eye socket. Just like how item descriptions say, the base serpent, aka the Abyssal Serpent, writhes within Messmer. In all of the cases, you'll notice with the Formless Mother and the Bloodstar, something terribly horrific happens to the wielder's body before they then come to a truth in the dark. With Mohg, it was the torture. With the Blood Fiends, it was their fire and pillaging of their land. And with the Bloodstar and the Blood Fiends, it was their eyes being pierced by thorns. In contrast, I think Messmer's a little different. From all the information given, it seems very likely that the base serpent or the Abyssal Serpent cursed Messmer at birth. A question now arises though. Was it a curse or was it a blessing? We are told that the Abyssal Serpent was the original sin. This seems very similar in wording to how Marika is talked about inside of the story trailer for Shadow of the Erdtree. They talk about a seduction and a betrayal, and I believe the Abyssal Serpent has everything to do with that. There's this awesome channel called Tim Digity. A few months back, he made a video talking about how, you know that weird thing that Marika reaches her hand into and pulls the golden threads from? He made a really good point that it looks like a snake. And when you add that together with everything else we know, everything makes so much more sense. Something found in the Bloodfiend's encampment really gives us some light on this. It states, the clan who lost everything in the Great Fires peered upon the corpse of their ancestor, normally an act of sanctity, and saw in its shadow a twisted deity. The clan had suffered such torment that the horrible thing was taken as an object of worship. I truly believe that after Marika perhaps slew this snake, that's when it became the Formless Mother. For before it, item descriptions like to call it the Mother of Truth, not the Formless Mother. Originally, I thought it was just different names coming from two separate groups. But now I'm thinking more along the lines that maybe before the slaying of its mortal flesh, it was known as the Mother of Truth. It talks about great fires, and that also explains all the hidden details of the Formless Mother. For if it was burnt, it would become formless, it would have no body, and yet it still exists. If I was you, I'd probably be wondering what Messmer's role in all of this is. Let me paint you a picture. So Marika takes those golden threads out of that snake's eye, brings it up to Divine Gate, which by the way is used to transform someone into a god, holds up these golden threads and becomes a god. Don't you think that perhaps her godly children that she births would have some remnant of this outer god's physical form which she slew? I believe Messmer is that product. I believe he's the vestiges of that different power brought into being, which makes sense because everything we know of Messmer is that he's the eldest child of Marika. The Formless Mother, which I'm just going to call it from now on, in every instance displays some motherly intent. And while in different cases, like the Briars of Sin and with Moog, it's done out of a place where they have no one left and they need that mother figure, I believe in the case of Messmer, the reason why she is this mother figure is because technically perhaps she sees him as partly her child. If her power is passed on down to Messmer from Marika, it makes a lot of sense. If this is the case, it adds an even more tragic layer to Messmer and the Formless Mother. For Messmer scorns the Abyssal Serpent. He does not give in. Marika very much seems to have convinced Messmer that it is evil, and so he hates himself for it. He does not give in to the Abyssal Serpent, his Formless Mother. There's actually a lot of connections more to do with Messmer and the Formless Mother. The first of which being his flame. Now we know, and it's sort of hinted in item descriptions, that his flame is sort of connected to the base serpent. He hates both of them very much equally. Something I find really interesting about Messmer's flame is if you actually look at the flame, it looks like something's writhing within it, something formless, a blur of colour. We're never told what this is, and it could just be a design choice. I think it would be very fitting if this was a projection of the Abyssal Serpent's power, aka the Formless Mother. Another connection is Messmer is associated with red. Colour plays a really interesting role inside of Elden Ring, and no matter who the followers of the Formless Mother are, they are all associated with red, and Messmer is no exception. Another point I really wanted to talk about has to do with the Formless Mother's followers and their abilities. All of their abilities have something to do with their torment. For example, Moog has Blood Flame, and so does the Blood Fiends. The Blood Fiends, that can be understood because the Blood Fiends, their tribes suffered great fires. But Moog, why does he have the Blood Flame if it represents his suffering? Have you ever seen Moog's skin? It's black. Now yes, this could be genetics, but what if it's actually because he's been set on fire? Another example is the Briars of Sin. Their sorcery is of thorns. Their suffering was of thorns. The thorn crowns piercing their eyes, which eventually led to them finding the Blood Star. And then finally Messmer with his snakes. His suffering was from the snakes which pierce his skin, and also the emotional trauma he suffered at the hands of people who hated him because he had these snakes. For example, even some of his biggest commanders and generals who, once they learned of his nature, they abandoned him. In my opinion, this is further proof of the connections these characters and entities have. In all depictions of the Formless Mother, they are formless, and yet I've claimed today that the Abyssal Serpent, which does have a form, is the Formless Mother. I like to think of the Formless Mother a bit like H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horror. The great ones within H.P. Lovecraft's work. My interpretation of them has always been the forms they take are what the people viewing them are most scared of. The reason I believed this was because a lot of the forms that these great ones take are over deep space or deep sea. Both of those are very, very unknown. And as H.P. Lovecraft says, the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear. And the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. I actually think in Messmer's case, it's the complete opposite. The form the Formless Mother takes is one that is familiar. Whereas to people who don't know anything about the Formless Mother, or at least not its original form like Moog and the Briars of Sin, all they see is just this blur of colour, the Bloodstar. Perhaps the form of the snake was even took to taunt Marika. We've talked about how all this has come about, but I want to talk about the implications. Messmer is resenting the Formless Mother with the Abyssal Serpent, but at the end he reaches his breaking point and finally embraces his mother. This rejecting of Marika and embracing the Formless Mother is further seen in his last dialogue, where he says "mother" and then cuts himself off and says "Marika, curse upon ye." I think if there was an option for us to spare Messmer, we would have got some kind of dialogue along the lines of the Formless Mother. Sadly everyone, that is the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Although this video was a bit speculatory, I genuinely do believe what I've talked about in today's video. Of course, as always, it's up to you whether you believe it or not, but I really hope you did enjoy this take I've given you today. Anyway, I'm not going to hold you any longer. I really hope you have a great rest of your day, and may you find your worth in the waking world. Goodbye everyone.